You punch the camera up, which I think is camera one, then I'll start. Good afternoon. Thank you guys for joining us. I am Brad Barnett. I am President and CEO of the Kerrville Area Chamber of Commerce, and welcome to one of our quarterly Lunch and Learns. We've got a great turnout here at the Chamber. We've got a good group online. And just so you know, we are recording this. So if you like it, then you'll be able to share that link with other people. One of the things, and we're going to be talking about a pretty important topic. We have two solar eclipses coming up over the next year. So we're going to dive into that. And one of the things, this won't be exhaustive just because probably at least once every 4 to 6 weeks over the next year, we're going to be doing our Coffee Talk podcast. So we'll be going into more depth about this. All that stuff will be posted. We'll talk about the CVB has done a phenomenal job of taking the lead on the website. So what I want to do now is go ahead and let each one of our panelists introduce themselves, a little bit of background. The city started, it's been a little over a year, I think, since they started meeting as a committee, which is interesting because I'll run into people and they go, does the city know there's an eclipse coming? No, not at all.
It happens.
But it does take a lot of planning. When I was in Midland, I was in charge of logistics for an event that had 12 to 53,000 people every July 4th. So just knowing all of what goes into that, partnering with emergency management, partnering with the city, county, everybody. And I think the city's done a phenomenal job. But I'll start out. Leslie, if you want to give me a little bit of background about what you do and your involvement.
Sure. This is on, right?
Yes.
All right. I'm Leslie Jones. I'm the PR and Communications Manager for the Kerrville Convention and Visitors Bureau.
I'm Allison. I'm the Director of Customer and Community Relations for KPUB. And I also sit on the city's planning committees. I chair our Community Education Subcommittee. It's a very long title. But yes, I'll reiterate, the city's done a great job. Ever since the 2017 eclipse ended, I know they've been working behind the scenes and planning for this event. And our group has been actively meeting since the spring of last year.
All right.
Hi, my name is Jeff Stone. I am an umbraphile, which means I love shadows, specifically shadows of the moon on the earth. So I'm all into eclipses, seen several of them, and I serve on Allison's committee, and we're having a great time trying to get the word out here in Kerrville.
I'm Jerremy Hughes. I'm the emergency management coordinator for the city of Kerrville, which my other hat is training officer for Kerrville Fire Department. I've been there 29 years and 3 days. I just had my anniversary, so.
Jeff, something else. Why did you move to Kerrville?
Why did I move?
Jeff.
Oh, Jeff.
Yeah. Oh. Thank you for that question, Allison. We actually have some friends who live here, and we've been visiting them over the years. And after finding out that the eclipse was going to run right through Kerrville, my wife and I decided that would be a much better place to live than Houston. So we found a piece of property and built a house that's 0.74 miles from the center line. Not that anybody's counting. Yes, one of the reasons we moved here was to live here for the eclipse, so we wouldn't have to go anywhere.
One of the things, and this is probably a Leslie question. I know the Convention and Visitors Bureau, who's just gone through a rebranding. If y'all haven't gone, go to their website. Great new logo. But y'all have really taken the lead. So talk a little bit about what the CVB's been doing and for the eclipse.
The biggest role we've played in with the eclipse is we created the KerrvilleEclipse.com website. And so we're kind of using that as the hub of information that we get from the city, Parks and Rec, the Sheriff's Department. A lot of that is finding out events that are happening. So if you are planning an event or a viewing location, there's a form there for you to fill out on the website. That's KerrvilleEclipse.com, or you can put in KerrvilleTXEclipse.com. It goes to the same place. But that is allowing us to get that information to emergency services as well as like Parks and Rec that are planning also big events. So we're kind of using that as a big information hub. We've also created some marketing pieces. We do have this available. So if anybody would like to take some, or if you'd want some in bulk, come see us at the Visitor Center. It just has some very biteable information to get you kind of excited for the eclipse, or if somebody needed to know something that you're like, well, I'm not quite sure, but here's this. We've created this. We've also created things to hand out to groups to encourage them to come visit or to be here for the eclipse. So we have glasses available. We're also giving those away as giveaways to convention business only. We are selling a small amount to individuals in the visitor center, and we also have shirts. But essentially, our plan is just to talk about why Kerrville would be a great place to be here for the eclipse, as well as collecting the information to get to emergency services.
Jim, so you've been to a few of these before.
Yes, sir.
How many have you been to?
Well, we've seen 2 previous total solar eclipses and 1 annular eclipse. So this will be a next time around for both of those.
Okay.
We're very excited about that.
Tell me a little bit about your experience when you've gone to these events.
Well, the one that stands out the most was in 1991. My wife and I decided that we wanted to go to Mexico and see the total eclipse that was happening then. I had originally wanted to go to Hawaii for that one when I first heard about it, but that was 5 years in advance of that, and United Airlines wouldn't sell me a ticket. So I had to wait, and then eventually met my wife, and we headed to Mexico with a group from the Johnson Space Center in Houston. And I kind of had an idea that it was going to be really cool, but I had no idea how cool it was really going to be. That particular one where we were in Mexico was 6 minutes and 58 seconds, which is almost as long as a total eclipse can be. The maximum is a little over 7 minutes. And so all of a sudden, here comes the shadow across the clouds, and it was dark. And the first thing that struck me was they were right. They knew exactly when that eclipse was going to happen and where it was going to happen. And I was there, and they were right. And I thought that was really cool. So April 8th, 2024, there's going to be an eclipse here. I hope there's not clouds, but there's going to be an eclipse. But it was, I guess one of the best ways I can describe it is if you ask somebody if they've ever seen a total eclipse, if they hesitate for even a half a second, the answer is no. They may think they have, and more power to them. But if you've seen a total eclipse, it gets me every time I think about it and start talking about it. And it's that emotional and visceral kind of experience that you really don't want to miss out on. So for all you folks that are talking about leaving town and renting your place out, don't do that. Stick around and watch it.
Allison, just on the communication side, where you're on the committee, talk a little bit about what, because we have 3 committees. So kind of your committee and what you've been doing there.
Sure. So we are community education, and our primary focus is just getting the word out to the public that an eclipse is happening, and then how to be prepared and enjoy the eclipse and make sure that everybody has a great experience during it. It is, of course, going to bring a large influx of visitors, and it's a really wonderful experience. But there are some things that our community and businesses should do to prepare for that, and so that's what the purpose of our committee is. We meet almost on a monthly basis and talk about different ways to reach the public with press releases, our social media accounts, and brainstorm, the topics that we need to reach the public with, which is really about, on the community education side, being prepared safety-wise with eyeglasses, making sure that you stock up in advance with water, groceries, gasoline, things like that. And then also how businesses can prepare and also take advantage of the great economic impact too that we'll have here in our community also.
And that's going to really be one of the things the chamber is going to be pushing more, is working directly with our businesses to make sure that they're stocked up and prepared and for the influx, and that they're not running out of some of those key ingredients. So, and working with other chambers, I know a counterpart in Bernie, they've done a phenomenal job of already having their book together of ideas for businesses. So not having to reinvent the wheel. I know Lauren on our staff that does communications for us has reached out to several of the other places that have had eclipses before. So that's the good thing about this, is it's not like it's the first time it's ever happened and we're having to create that wheel set. And speaking of not having to recreate stuff, I want to go ahead and have Jerremy talk a little bit about kind of emergency management, because I know y'all do this every year, July 4th.
Yes, sir.
So this isn't your first big event, but just kind of what you are looking at doing.
Okay. So from the emergency management aspect, if you kind of think of emergency management, our most successful events are the ones that you didn't even know that we were involved. A lot of times the 4th of July, you see the trailer there. So you know, we are involved in that, making sure that we're keeping the citizens safe. And that's our number one goal is life safety. The next part is incident stabilization and then property conservation. So with it being an eclipse, you know, odds are as far as a crowd that's being attracted, I mean, they're the ones that are more respectful to the environment, stuff like that. So there shouldn't be any property conservation. So it's life safety that we're focused on. The key is making sure that we have all the medical in place and make sure that law enforcement is we have enough law enforcement for the area. Plus, we have to make sure that we're doing our daily job. The best way to describe it is if we have a winter storm, you know, we're pros at that. You know, since I've been in emergency management, we've had 3. My first one was probably the biggest one that we could ever have here in Texas. So I described it today like imagine the painting in the hallway or this right here. You go to it and you have this whole picture. We know what to do. If the next winter storm, whenever it comes in 24, and it will be here, I go to that playbook. We have everything. We start rolling everything and putting them in place. The Eclipse, it's like we have all the pieces right now, but it's more like a puzzle. So we know what the finished product's going to be. We have all the pieces to put it, but as we get closer, that picture will start developing. So right now we're in that early stages where we're starting to make those relationships and visit with people, whether it be the hospital. Right now we have several meetings, but the 3 that are most important is we have the city meeting, which it's the streets, public works, it's fire, EMS, and law enforcement. Each time that we need a different component, we'll pull someone in. So like if we do communications, you know, we might pull someone who specializes into that group. The next meeting is the joint, which is county and city, because the Eclipse doesn't start at the city limits and end as it gets to the city limits. It's not only Kerr County, but it's all of Texas. It's going to go across. So we meet with the county and all the stakeholders and that in order to make sure that everything functions like it should, because that traffic is coming back into Kerrville to get on I-10. So, and then our next phase is meeting with the state. Once we know what we can provide with the city, that's where the state would come in. If we need more resources, then we would request those from the state. So.
I know one of the things, Leslie, that you mentioned was for people to go ahead and register their events, which obviously helps.
That helps emergency management a lot. By us understanding where the events are taking place, that allows us to prepare. Because the way it's been described to me, I haven't been to one, but it's going to be like 5 Alamo domes letting out at the same time. So the way that we manage that is, number one, with the events, that helps keep people there and help us control when it's a slow let out. So that's where those events come in. Same thing, which I would imagine with businesses, you know, if people are eating, if they're shopping, it helps more of a controlled let out. So.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenges for restaurants and stuff during this is making sure they're staffed up, because to me, this is a great opportunity for our business community and Kerrville as a whole to really make that first impression, because obviously on the tourism side, we're a great place to come. So, and I think we probably saw a lot of that in I'm sure, Leslie, you guys have statistics from COVID when this is one of the few places, hey, you can get away and maybe be outside without your mask for 5 minutes. So have you all, after COVID, have you been able to track any kind of return visitors?
Well, like you said, we weathered COVID really well because so much of our amenities are outdoor related. So that was also made it a safe place to go. And we were also seeing a lot of urban flight at that time. And we're not an urban area, right? We're a beautiful hill country town. So that helped us weather COVID. We also jumped back really quickly because of that when people wanted to travel because we're a great drive destination. And we have seen that trend go. I think now that everything's kind of opened up essentially and people are flying again, we were already anticipating a little bit of a dip, but we still have a really strong drive market from those bigger areas like Houston, San Antonio, Austin. And I think that will continue, especially as we get into the summertime and the fall.
And kind of that, just to reiterate, if you're an organization or an individual planning things, I think the feedback we've heard is, well, we don't have all the details, so we don't want to list that on the site. You guys want that listed as soon as it's an idea, possibly.
Yes, as soon as an idea would be great, and you can flush it out as it comes. But that way, it just is at least on our radar, and then we can pass that along to emergency services, so it's on their radar, and then we can like come back and circle back and be like, hey, how are we doing on planning? We know it's stressful, but it's just a great way. It kind of makes it like you have someone else in your corner that's also looking out for your best interest as well.
Awesome. And I don't know, Allison, you may be able to address this if not Rain's here in the room, but I know the city's really being proactive, taking the lead, because I think to mitigate that 5 stadiums, which is an amazing analogy of them leaving, is getting them to come in a little early, stay a little later. So I know there's some plans for events in the park. So I don't know if you know more details or.
I'll probably defer to Rain on that actually, to go over the plans just that way that they're translated right.
Yeah, so for 2023, the Parks and Recreation Department is going to be hosting Kerrville River Festival. There's going to be a lot of other events happening during that time as well. But I think when we're talking about that big release of people, we're mostly talking about, no, we are only talking about 2024. There's going to be a lot of people in town for 2023, but it's not going to be creating this type of standstill traffic for hours. So in 2024, the Parks and Recreation Department is going to be hosting the Kerrville Eclipse Festival in Hughes Park. And it's designed to have a safe and fun place for our residents and visitors to experience the eclipse. But it's also going to be designed to try to get our businesses and organizations in the park in a centralized location to benefit from that. And it is again designed to try to hold people in the park after totality. So we're trying to implement plans that will incentivize people to stay after totality, because that would be such a big group in town. And so if you're planning an event, I do encourage you to do the same and to have messaging like come for the sun, stay for the stars, that type of thing. So I encourage people to hang out, enjoy, and not go sit in the traffic. And then I know our hotels are also doing a mandatory Monday night as well to further try to incentivize people to stay. When is your festival? And the 2024 is April 8th, 2024. The day of. Yes.
And there's information about that, I'm sure, already on the CVB site about.
Yes, we already have what the city has given us for their events, as well as some of the other. Hill Country Arts Foundation is also planning a large event out at Stonehenge because it is also in totality. And then so is Quiet Valley Ranch, where the Kerrville Folk Festival is held. They are also planning an event. Those will be, obviously, they have the space for those to be large. And so we're also encouraging, even if you're doing like a small gathering in a church parking lot and you're like, we don't want everybody to know, that's okay. There's a way to like list this as a private event that won't be listed, but it will still go to emergency services because that is still necessary for them to know about. And I will touch on what Rain talks about with the hotels asking for a mandatory Monday night stay. 2 hotels are currently taking reservations, and that is Into the Hills and the YO. They have a package, and it is a 4-night minimum stay. There's a list I left on everybody's seats, and if you would like more, please let us know. This is the overall, the hotels that we know for sure are either open for reservations or planning to be opening to take them soon. there's a full listing of everybody's status we know about currently on the website under Eclipse accommodations. We cannot tell them what to do. We can only check in with them. And so we are doing that almost weekly to see where everybody is at and then updating the site from there. But that way you kind of have an idea what people are doing. And we will only be listing accommodations or partners that are hotel occupancy tax accepting. So they're doing it. That's how we are funded. And so if there are people wanting to do this on their own, which is fine. We cannot list them on our website, but we have a listing of resources for them to take advantage of since we won't be able to accommodate that.
And I do know we have our friends from the Chalk Festival here. And so I'm going to touch a little bit on the annular eclipse that's happening in October too. So the annular eclipse in October, the city is thinking that we're going to see tourism on the levels of around the 4th of July. And so the Chalk Festival is happening the same weekend actually as our annular eclipse. And so is the River Festival too. So that will be a big weekend for us, but not anything comparable to what we're going to see in April 2024. So if you live through the October eclipse and you're like, oh, it wasn't that big of a deal. That's just like the tip of the iceberg of what we're going to experience in April. Yes.
And really, this can kind of be, everybody can chime in on this, but we have, Joe Q citizen sitting there going, okay, what do I need to do to prepare? What would be your suggestions?
Gas, groceries, and water, definitely. I mean, those are the three things that I would suggest. And then, having a plan in place to really probably not move around too much that weekend as well.
And then I would add prescription medications on that list too.
Yeah, it's a good suggestion.
Yeah, kind of getting that ahead of time. That way it's... Yeah.
And also be prepared to, you may have spotty cell phone service and things like that also happening that weekend.
So you can go to preparetexas.org, which is through the state, and it has on there what you should do to prepare. And if you basically, fill that out, take that form and make sure that you have all that on hand, you're ready for the next winter storm. You're ready for possible flood this weekend. I mean, you name it. We should always be prepared. An example, with me, and it has nothing to do with me being in emergency management, but we always have one case of water in a closet and we rotate it out. And it's a lot of that's because I have a water well, live in the counties, but there's nothing worse than that pump going out, not having water. At least we have that case to get us through until we can get water. So.
And if you're a business owner, just thinking ahead of logistics and things like if you have deliveries that are coming in, for your business, making sure that those happen before those peak times, before the eclipse and after the eclipse, well in advance too.
And one of the things too that questions we've gotten are, should businesses stay open or should they close? And my thought is it's really going to, I think, depend on your business. I mean, certain things, obviously hotels need to stay open for we need room. Yes. Restaurants, people need to eat. But other than that, and again, Jeff, where you've been to other communities through this, what did you see on the business side? Did everybody stay open? Did too many people close?
Well, the eclipse that we saw in Mexico, we were on top of a mountain 4 hours away from Puerto Vallarta. So there weren't many businesses around. There was nothing going on there except the eclipse. However, that got us so excited. We went to Herman, Missouri for the 2017 eclipse. And that was kind of a similar town to here. There's a lot of antique stores, a lot of, there's wineries, there's all kinds of, local places around. And it seemed like most of them were open. I didn't really notice anybody had shut down. We were actually staying at a B&B that was kind of off the beaten path. And that was intentional. So the day of the eclipse, I didn't really see what was going on in town until we tried to leave. And Herman, Missouri is like nowhere. I mean, there's an interstate nearby, and we had heard on the radio that the interstate was completely plugged up. So we decided to go a different direction.
You tried to leave the same day as the event?
We did. That was a mistake. But we had sort of an adventure. I like to say I've never been lost. I just take the long way. And we definitely took the long way trying to get back to Texas from Missouri that day because we had heard that the interstate across there was completely plugged up. But the leading up to the eclipse, there was a lot of activity. We were in town walking around. There were lots of people around, and so that was kind of impressive. One other thing to mention is I saw an article that said that eclipse in 2017, which went from Oregon all the way across the country to South Carolina, was witnessed by 150 million people. Now that's probably more people than have seen an eclipse in the last several decades. But the other thing is they're all in America. And they all have access pretty much to I-35 and I-10. So I think the fact that Hermann, Missouri didn't have so many people as I kind of expected was because people didn't know. There weren't that many people who had felt the goosebumps and seen what had happened. And now 150 million people know that. And here we are at the corner of 10 and 35 on the center line. I think there's going to be a lot more people this time than last time, just because so many people experienced it before.
Okay, so I think one of the big things I would assume is really be prepared to be patient, which can sometimes be difficult. And I would say just be friendly, because we're going to have so many visitors. So this, that you only get one chance to make a first impression. So from our business owners and just citizens, it's treat people like family, which I think is one of the great things that we do here in Kerrville. So kind of brag on that. Are we allowed to mention the group that's four-letter group that's going to be here for both of them, or is that a secret?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. That NASA is planning to have people on the ground for the annual and the total, correct?
I think so, right? Yeah. Okay, yeah.
So that will really be neat. And I was, again, talking about counterpart in Bandera last week, and he said a couple of years ago, somebody that's a contractor for NASA stayed in Bandera for a couple of years, doing all these coordinates and checking stuff out. I was like, you just don't think of that much prep work, but like you're saying, Jeff, they know down to the detail of where this is going to happen. So just really an interesting thing to.
I'd like to add on that, if you don't mind, because I think we have a great example in Jeff, that Jeff literally moved here for the eclipse. He was like, this is where I want to be. Whenever we knew in 2017, they announced that we would be in totality for 2024, we started having people coming into our visitor center almost monthly to start scoping out Kerrville since 2017. And they come regularly checking out where their ideal places they want to go and see it, where their alternatives are. So we've been very much on people's radars for a very long time.
And again, I've got to commend the city for taking the lead on really pulling the community together, and that group has just grown because we want to make sure we get the word out there.
And to that point, something I didn't mention that our committee has been doing is actually going out and doing speaking events and things like this today. So if y'all have a group that you are a part of, we've been visiting the Rotaries and the Kiwanis clubs and all of those type of organizations of Kerrville, and then partnering with the chamber, of course, and all of our media. But if you have an organization or somebody that you think that we should speak to, get in contact with Rain. And Jeff has been a great spokesperson for us since he's lived through an eclipse. But we can help, put together somebody to come out and talk to your group too.
Well, one of the things we already kind of touched on is cell phone service. Just be aware that could be spotty. What about utility services? And Allison, just on the KPUB side,
sure.
What do you all expect, and how have you all been preparing for this?
So this is just on the electric side, and it's not the water side. I can't really speak to that, but on the electric side, luckily April is an off-season month for us, and so we really don't expect to see an impact from this. Of course, we're going to see increased demand, but we have the same number of houses, same number of everything in our community. There will just be a lot more people populated in those hotels and areas, but we're not anticipating any kind of event on the electric side. But I think we should be prepared on things definitely on the cell phone and other areas too.
And for the group that's here online, if you're watching this recording, you missed it. But tonight, I believe at the Dieter Center is a town hall meeting. on this. Does anybody know what time it is? Starts 5:30 at the Dieter Center tonight. So again, just the more of these we can get out there, and then the help that I think you guys here in the room and online can give us is really passing this information along, and just staying informed of that. And does anybody else have anything before we go and throw it to questions?
On the topic of communications, I heard an interesting conversation the other day. Somebody said that, we're getting ready to give up our landline finally. Well, on Eclipse Day, April 8th, cell phone service may be spotty at best. So having a landline would be a good thing. So if you can hang on to one of those until after next April, I would recommend that.
Okay, Lauren's waving her hand, so it looks like we probably have some questions on the chats before we go to them.
There's been a couple in the room.
Okay, yeah.
So one of them is probably going to be for lodging. How will the community handle the number of beds for all the heads that are ready to be in town?
In other words, how's the community going to deal with the increase in people, and where are they going to stay?
Well, obviously, our first push as the Convention and Visitors Bureau is that they stay in our hotels and our partners that are collecting hotel occupancy tax in the city limits. As far as I believe outside of that, there's no real way to regulate if anybody wanted to open up their house or guest house for people to stay or to have tent camping. So that is up to the individual, and they should probably really consider all avenues of what they will need to host those people and prepare accordingly. And like I said, we will not be listing those third parties on our website, but there will be links for them to utilize if they wish to do that. But as far as I know, all of the hotels are preparing within the capacities that they can and are able to.
Well, I think one of the things that that came up in one of our meetings last week was, can people hang out on the sidewalk and set stuff up? So my assumption is, unless I'm wrong, you would not be able to just camp on the sidewalk, because that would be in violation of ADA if you don't leave a walkway. Is that correct?
I would imagine. Yeah. I would imagine you couldn't. So.
Yeah. And so, having been to one though, is there the ones you've been to, was there a huge number of people that basically were pitching a tent and camping wherever they could find?
Actually, not that I personally witnessed. I heard stories of those things, especially in 2017 out west, where there's more wide open spaces. There were a lot of towns that were inundated, and any large area like a parking lot or a ball field or something like that apparently had people basically just camping out where they were. Which brings up an interesting aspect of this. Those people need to have a place to lay their heads, but they also need to go to the bathroom. And for those of you with businesses, that's going to be a big question, and you're going to need to really think through how you manage that, because that is going to be a demand that I think is going to be by necessity underserved, and that really deserves a lot of thoughtful preparation.
And I know the city has done, and other groups have worked on trying to secure porta potties, but I think that's going to be a bottleneck challenge because everybody's looking for it. So that I think will be, before we go to any more chats, let's go ahead and somebody, I think we had a few questions here in the room. Okay.
I flew to Omaha, Nebraska for the 2017. I had a great time. The weather wasn't good. We had to drive 2 hours to stay ahead of the front that was coming in, so that the outlying areas that may need to have some routes planned out for visitors who want to try to, follow it if the weather isn't bad. But our food service is what's bothering me. I don't think we can accommodate with the restaurants that we have. We didn't have any reservations, and there were no places to eat, no restaurants open. But what saved us, several restaurants were providing carry out sack lunches. So if you're in the restaurant business, you might consider that.
Great idea.
Yeah.
I would reiterate that Lucy is not here, but she's on our committee. She experienced the 2017 eclipse as well and said the same thing, that the restaurants were not prepared where she was at. And so that's something that we're actively working on, reaching our restaurant industry here and giving them that advice to be prepared and have exactly what you're talking about, a set menu and having to-go options and things like that to be prepared well in advance. But the restaurants will definitely get almost overrun during that.
What about you had food trucks that would be coming in for this, and do they need spots? Because we've got, I keep thinking we need to have some
Go ahead. As of right now, no, because no food trucks have reached out to plan for that. That would be obviously up to the food trucks, and I can't speak for them, but if they decided to, of course, like I said, that would be up for them coming and telling us.
And that's the good thing about this, where the city started this prep so far in advance for an event like this, is we get feedback from you guys on this. We can start planning to pivot and go, okay, well, this is a good thing to implement and see. So other questions here, or want to go to one online? Do we have anybody that's online that wants to unmute and ask our panelists a question? And they're so good, they've covered everything.
So I have a quick question about NASA. And you said that they were coming. Will they hold a public event for people to learn from them, or is it just that they're coming for their own work?
Rain, do we have any details yet if that's kind of, they will be holding some education or they will not?
They will be at our solar eclipse event in Hughes Park. They're going to be kind of a very strong partner at the event and a very strong presence with educational information. They're not hosting their own event. Okay. It's partnered with our Kerrville Eclipse Festival event.
Okay, so and if y'all couldn't hear online, I'll kind of repeat that. That they'll be partnering with the city. They'll be at the riverfront Kerrville Eclipse Festival. So they'll be a part of that, but they're not hosting their own event. I think they will be broadcasting live. And then I also think some of the pre-material that we got the okay that the city will be able to have that material streaming or access to those recordings just from an educational standpoint ahead of time. So, well, that kind of leads into, and to me, I think Jeff's the best one to ask this. Do you have any ideas if somebody wants to get educated just so they're prepared? Because I know when I travel, I'm kind of the geek that I like to research, and because I don't want to come back from a trip and I'm like, oh man, I missed that place. So what could they do to prepare?
Yeah, absolutely. As you all know, the internet has got more information than you could ever possibly digest. And that's certainly true of the eclipses as well. One of my favorite websites, just because of the professional presentation of it, is a site called greatamericaneclipse.com. They've got amazing materials out there. There's lots of others. If you're interested on finding out exactly where you are relative to the center line of the eclipse, which is maximum eclipse. And the most we're going to have here is about 4 minutes and 25 seconds in a little bit. But that website is a guy, I think he's in France. His name is Javier Jubier. I think it's XAVIERJUBIER.com. Sure, that's something. Anyway, you can find him. It's pretty easy. Just Javier with an X and Eclipse will find it. And that's a great site because he uses Google Maps, and you can zoom into your house and touch that, and it'll tell you exactly how long the eclipse is going to be, exactly when it starts, when it ends, you know, all that kind of thing. Another thing that's really, really important to understand is the eclipse that's in October, the annular eclipse, is not going, it's called annular because it's not total. So that means that you're going to need to use some kind of eye protection the whole time you're observing that event. Okay, and I would highly recommend getting some eclipse glasses, the real thing. I know, you know, welding glass, this, that, and the other. There are things that are popularly safe. I do not recommend any of those. I suggest you invest small investment in some Eclipse glasses or a filter for whatever kind of recording devices you might have, or binoculars or whatever. Definitely get some real live solar safe material that you can use to observe it directly. There are lots of indirect methods of observing an eclipse, and you can find those on the internet as well. But for the one that's in April, the total eclipse, during that 4 minutes and 25 seconds, you better take your eclipse glasses off or you're not going to see anything. Okay, you take your eclipse glasses off at that point, then you can see the diamond ring and the corona and the planets and stars and lots of cool stuff. You'll feel the temperature drop, the mosquitoes will come out. All 3 mosquitoes we have here in Kerr County will be there where you are. And so there, during that time, you definitely want to remember to take your Eclipse glasses off or filter off your recording devices or whatever and observe that directly. But be ready for the moment when the sun comes back. It's going to be just as bright as when it left. And if you're staring at the sun and you're absolutely transfixed, look away, okay? Because it's going to be really bright again and you can hurt your eyes. So just really think seriously about how you're going to protect yourself while you're observing it.
And I'd like to add that the city of Kerrville has solar eclipse glasses for sale at Kerrville Park right now. They're being sold for $3 each. And you're interested in selling them at your business, you can reach out to recreation@kerrvilletx.gov. And then we have some bulk pricing available. So once 2023-2024 come, we'll kind of put together a list of businesses where people can purchase glasses, which will hopefully help drive into your business.
So anybody online, if you couldn't hear that, Kerrville Shriner Park, you can get Eclipse glasses now for $3 a piece. And I'm sure other businesses will be doing it, but yeah, I like your thing. It's let's don't redneck it. And being from Kentucky, I am a redneck at heart, but let's do this and do it safely and just enjoy the experience. So, and keep your eyesight intact so you can hopefully see another one of these in the future. So anybody else on the glasses front? Anything to add?
I'll just reiterate, because Parks and Rec they have more than us. That's why we will push businesses to obviously purchase from Parks and Rec. We have, like I said, a small amount of glasses for sale as well in the visitor center. Ours are $2 a piece. And then, like I said, a bulk will be going to convention groups and businesses that would be staying overnight as in the hotels. So 2 great places, but like Rain said, they can also equip you to sell from your business. And we would encourage that.
And we have those in stock, so you can pick them up.
Okay, do one more.
Y'all have t-shirts also, right? T-shirts, yes.
We have t-shirts as well.
Yeah, these lovely t-shirts.
So I have a question about safety. What is the city, county doing? Are they, as far as safety goes, are they having more sheriff, police? Are they ordering ambulances in? Or are they going to have more people on deck? I mean, we're talking about our little town becoming a mega town for a week twice. So what are we doing as far as staffing?
So like I said, it's early, 11 months out, but all that is definitely being addressed. That's what our meetings are with the city meeting with PD. And fire, EMS, we're planning out those staffing, and then the county as well, making sure that we have law enforcement throughout the county, because it's gonna be bigger because we got all the normal stuff, but then you have the extra stuff on top of it. So they will all be covered. Traffic, you know, you look at that many people letting out lights, traffic lights. Is only going to cause a problem. So I would imagine we'll have officers at intersections working. So all that is definitely being addressed.
And Peterson Health is actively engaged as well in all of the planning on that side of things too. So the hospital's making preparations and making a plan for this event too.
You know, to include water safety too.
Oh yes, ma'am.
There can be people inner tubes floating.
Oh yeah.
Behind the dams. Solid.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I'd like to reiterate that the annular eclipse, I think I feel confident that emergency services is already more than prepared for, because that is like a typical sold out weekend for us that we're seeing. So I don't think any point of concern, and that their focus is on the total solar eclipse where it should be, because that is where we're going to see our community growing at least three times its size. So I think annular, that's going to be just a really great weekend. It just so happens a cool thing is going on in the sky, and then the total solar eclipse will be the real ball game.
Yeah.
So Lauren, do we have any more questions from the chat?
Yeah, for businesses that are already struggling with staffing, do we have any details for them to find additional staffing for those events and various staffings?
We are working on putting that, seeing if we can come up with solutions, because I think that's a challenge for everybody, even for a small house like ours, 4.5 staff, that when you have an open staff position, it's difficult to fill. So I think everybody's going to be dealing with that, but we are looking at some resources to, and I think something even came up at the meeting, if you can find somebody, temporary staff to come in and just let them, bring a camper, put it on your lot, and just that way they can stay there. But we are going to put that together in kind of a suggested list for our business owners, because I think that will probably be, honestly, I think one of the biggest challenges for this event, because again, emergency management, it's what they do. So it's just ramping up and I think it's probably a little easier for you guys to get support in from the state level to fill in those gaps than it will be for people to get employees. And especially where it becomes a domino effect if the restaurants aren't open. So I think, some good suggestions of the to-go things, maybe suggesting to people, making sure HEB has stuff to go, or other grocery stores. I think those could be some solutions there. Then I didn't really answer the question, but were any more questions? Anybody here online? Can the panel remind us the times that we're looking at for April for the actual?
I believe the annual in October starts around like 11:41 is when that will start on us. That's a Saturday. And then for the total solar eclipse, it'll start at about 1:27 p.m. in the afternoon. Totality.
Questions for Leslie.
Okay, hopefully I answer it.
Okay, so you gave us a printout of hotels, and I understand beds and beds in Kerrville. But what about, do you have a listing of people that have signed up with HipCamp or the RV parks supposed to come in for that kind of stuff? On the website,
under the Eclipse accommodations, the places that have gotten back with us, they're the RV places that we know have a plan. Their status is listed there. And those are considered partners with us. I can't speak on part of HipCamp because that's not something we work with. But if there are people telling us there are people that use the viewing location and event form to tell us that they're going to allow tent camping, I'm just putting that on a list to give to emergency services. And there are resources on that page also for the people wanting to do that out of their homes and not collect hot tax or become a partner with us, for them to utilize to publicize themselves, since we would not be able to do that for them. I hope that answered your question.
Yes.
Which we're kind of the same way on the chamber side. We're trying to promote as much as we can, but obviously our focus is on, our 780 plus members. So that's always a tricky thing. When somebody asks about a restaurant, do you like it? Can't officially make a statement whether it is.
But yeah, since we're funded completely off hotel occupancy tax collected in the city limits, because that's the one we collect, those are our priority first, is making sure those get full first.
And the Kerrville Eclipse website is a great place. We've talked a lot about some different resources. The website that Jeff mentioned, that's linked from that page to all those lodging links. And I would highly encourage you to go to that as your source for information. And we are a community, and we're driving our information all together and collaborating. And that's going to be our main page. Also, our social media accounts. If you go on Instagram and Facebook, we have a Kerrville Eclipse page, and I highly suggest that you follow those too, because
any kind of important community communications will all be driven from those outlets. And, tips for our public too about like not booking with third-party entities and going straight to the hotel pages and booking all those messages and things like that will be coming out from those pages, and they are already too. So I think you had a question, Betty?
Nothing was just telling me that we already have been unable to get portable toilets for the Chalk Festival for the annual.
Oh, wow.
And so, other resources, and that also might be useful information for the group.
Yeah, we've heard that that's definitely going to be a big issue.
Who do they contact if they have a food truck they would bring? I know food trucks.
If you know food trucks that would be interested, I don't mind keeping that list. I'm not saying I can guarantee them a spot, but we can keep that list for people to have access to.
The city licensing to be able to.
I would assume if they're putting themselves on that list that they are going through all that licensing, because otherwise they wouldn't be operating. That would be my assumption. They have to have the license from whatever community they plan to operate out of for that day or time period.
Special event permit that gives vendors outside.
Yeah. Okay, so if anybody online, there is a one-time event permit that the food trucks can apply for. That way they're legal, because again, we want to make sure things can get dropped here. So that's part of, I think, our informational piece is getting that out there to the community, the public, and potential vendors. Because I think the more food trucks we can get, I think that's a great thing. And I know when we did July 4th in Midland, we had 40 food trucks. It's like you're going to make more money in that half day than. So definitely. Any other comments before we wrap up this afternoon? You guys have?
The only thing I would leave with is, if you're planning an event, help me do my job. Go to Eclipse.com and register. I don't know if there's a minimum for that, but I would imagine
about it.
Yeah, let us know about it. Let us decide if it's small but keep us, help us keep you on the radar so we don't dump everyone out in front of your event. So,
and just to reiterate, you can click a private button, so it won't be something that, oh, you've entered it on your site, on the CVB site, then everybody's going to see it, correct?
Correct.
I'd like to make one other comment. Having lived in Houston before I came here, I lived through a couple of hurricanes and the evacuation processes thereof, and people stopped on the side of the road, the highways, the interstates that ran out of gas, that needed this, that, whatever. The businesses near where that happened were impacted by that. So that's another thing that you want to think about as a business is what's going to happen in the several hours, maybe 12 hours after the eclipse is over to me in my location, because it's going to vary a lot by location. So that's definitely something you need to think about. And also in terms of, well, if I need to get anywhere during that time, I mean, you don't want to just have medications up until 1:30 in the afternoon on Monday. You want to have them through Tuesday or Wednesday.
Well, part of that too is I'm pretty sure Ingram ISD has already made the call that they're canceled. I know KISD, have they made the call?
Yeah. Yes.
Just because that would be difficult for the, not for the annular because it's Saturday and they're not at school, but definitely for the total.
Rice University is closing for the total eclipse.
Oh, wow. So Rice University is closing. So
maybe you can get some volunteer help from there.
Anything?
Q&A tonight? 5:30.
5:30 Q&A tonight at the Dieter Center. If you're watching this live, if you're watching this after May 11th at 5:30, you missed it. But again, this will be an ongoing process. The chamber is obviously a partner with this, and so this is just the beginning of our involvement really on the public side of pushing information. So definitely thank you guys for joining online and everybody that's here. Thank you guys to our panelists.
Just one last thing from the emergency management side. like if you're on social media, make sure you're following City of Kerrville, Stuart Cunhas. He's our public information officer. I mean, he's on top of it. I mean, he puts stuff out there, and as we get closer to the event, anything released by emergency management will definitely come through him. So make sure you're following that to get that information.
Yeah, and that's definitely good. I would go ahead and start that today if you're not already, just because that's ongoing stuff that the city and Stuart keeps everybody up to date. So we definitely appreciate their work.
And I just want to say thank you to the city and the chamber and the CDB again for all the work that they've been doing. It's not all something you can see right now, but they've been looking at this since the last clip ended. They have 3 subcommittees, a main committee, and all of us working together. So they've done a really great job of starting to prepare our community for this.
Got one last question.
Brad, as you close out today, can you tell us how much those shirts are going for? Because they look pretty amazing. And is that glow in the dark?
Oh, wow. Now that's cool. I haven't asked that question. Do the shirts glow in the dark, and how much are
only during totality?
Okay.
The shirts are $30, and these are our main committee shirts, but the public shirts will have this logo on the front is what they will look like.
Okay. Thank you.
So you get these special shirts when you're doing the volunteering, but definitely. And I think one of the things we've talked about as we wrap up is having these. If you get one of the shirts, it's a great talking point of somebody. Oh wow, I just heard about that. Or you're probably, if you wear it all day, somebody, what's that? So again, it's a great conversation starter. But thanks again, everybody, and we'll get information out on our next quarterly event for this, but we'll be in touch and giving you more information in the future on the Eclipse.
And follow us on social media.